Hello, everybody. My name is Christine Waszynski. I'm currently the president of the American Delirium Society, and I'd like to wish you all a happy World Delirium Awareness Day. I'd like to share a little bit about my background. I'm a Geriatric Nurse Practitioner, APRN, which I've been doing for 35 years, and prior to that, I was a nurse for 8 years. And I've been reflecting on why I'm so passionate about delirium. And what it brings me back to is my early days as a nurse. I started out on an orthopedic unit, and one of my first patients was a very elderly, older male. His name was Henry. He had cognitive impairment, probably advanced dementia, and he also, unfortunately, was visually and hearing impaired. So it was very difficult to communicate with Henry. And he had fallen and broken his hip. And what I found was that he would yell out and call out a lot. And so I was really struggling as a young nurse to try to figure out why this patient was in so much distress. And what I came to find out was that he was just very fearful. I noticed that when I went into the room and I began to turn him, he would cry out. So what I ended up doing was coming in and being very, very careful about how I approached him. I had a pattern down where I would walk in and I would stand by his upper body and I would just gently stroke his face and his shoulders to let him know that I was there. What I noticed was that when I took this approach, he no longer cried out. It was as though he knew I was there and he knew I was there to be helpful to him. So that was what really started my interest in non-pharmacological interventions for persons, particularly with cognitive impairment. And we know that those are the patients that are at highest risk for delirium, as we believe Henry was experiencing. So as I looked around my orthopedic unit, I saw many patients with delirium. Again, in those days, we didn't even call it that. We didn't know what it was, but we knew these patients were acutely confused, and many of them were either agitated, and some of them, again, were withdrawn. And as I look back on the practice then, we did things that were harmful to patients. Not purposefully, but we would give Demerol and Phenergan to every patient that had a hip fracture. We would use restraints with very little restraint. So there were a lot of restraints going on, and now we know better. We know that these are some of the harmful things that we do to patients that can precipitate a delirium or can make things worse. We know now that we actually can do prevention for some of these patients, particularly with non-pharmacological bundles. We know getting families involved early and consistently. We know how to avoid harmful meds, to mobilize or to exercise patients early to correct their sensory impairments to the best of our abilities. And basically what this is good nursing care. We also know we should screen to find these patients. We know that delirium is not dementia and vice versa. They're definitely different. And again, we need to continue to educate others so that we do not have a misnomer for a condition that's potentially treatable. I do want to share too, just looking back on the year of the nurse of 2020, that when I read Florence Nightingale's writings in her notes on nursing, all of the things that she suggests that we do for patients are all preventative measures for delirium. So I think nurses, as a nursing profession, that we are in a pivotal position for delivering the best optimum delirium care. So I would like to challenge all nurses that are listening to this broadcast. Every nurse should be versed in delirium. That was my campaign slogan for my presidential term. And again, that is my goal, to have nurses better educated, nurses doing more research around nursing care, non-pharmacological interventions, etc. Tell your stories of success in your work. Be proud of how you're able to work with these patients. Just think, if you're able to prevent a delirium with a patient that's at high risk for this condition, what an outcome that could be for that patient, short term as well as long term. Tell your stories, as I said. Tell everybody, I had an agitated patient and I played country music for her because I learned that's what she liked. She calmed down, she began to sing, and then I was able to work with her. Or I had a patient that was very withdrawn. I was having trouble reaching her. She wouldn't stay awake. I gave her a robotic cat because I learned that she has a cat at home. She immediately perked up, started to interact with the cat, and then I was able to assist her with her meal. So remember, this is why we do what we do every day, and this is why you make a difference. So go out there and share your stories, share your delirium work. And again, thank you for allowing me to represent you as president of the American Delirium Society, and I hope you will all become or continue to be active in this work.